Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morty and Glory video. Today we will be continuing with our unit review series, this time taking a look at Colonel Iron Hand Straken. In case you haven't seen one of these unit reviews before, what I like to do is firstly give an overview of the unit, go through its stats and its abilities. After that, we take a closer look and do a deep dive on the pros and cons of the unit and also the best ways you can use it on the battlefield. And finally, we sum it up with a score out of 10 and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And without further ado, let's tear a land shark's throat out with our teeth and dive straight into today's episode. So it goes without saying that Colonel Iron Hand Straken is one of the coolest characters available to the Imperial Guard. He is the commanding officer of the Catachan 2nd, the Green Vipers, and he is a bullish, practical and cunning officer. Having survived dire wounds, Straken's extensive bionics magnify his innate Catachan strength. He always leads from the front, loudly encouraging his troops bombastically as he visibly crushes the enemy with the sweeping blows of his Catachan Devil's Claw. Colonel Straken simply exemplifies everything that it means to be Catachan. He is loud, he is proud, he is armed to the teeth, and he is not afraid to get stuck in with the boys. On the tabletop, Colonel Iron Hand Straken is an HQ choice for your army. He is a single model similar to a Cadian Castellan or Ursula Creed. And also like both of those units, Colonel Straken is a senior officer and commandant for your Imperial Guard force. But unlike other senior officers in the Guard who primarily are focused on supporting and buffing their fellow Guardsmen, Colonel Straken is a genuine combat beast and absolute unit. He boasts one of the most impressive stat lines for any humanoid character in 40k. It starts off fairly normal. He has a movement value of 6, nothing special to write home about there, but it quickly escalates with a weapon skill of 2+, a ballistic skill of 3+, a strength of 6, a toughness of 4, that's as tough as the Lord Solar, and he's also got 5 wounds, 6 attacks base, a leadership of 9, and a 3+ save. That's right, despite the fact this guy goes into combat bare-chested wearing combat pants, he has the same armor value as a Space Marine in power armor. But it doesn't end there, because Mr. Straken is also a literal one-man armory. He comes with an auto shotgun, a plasma pistol, a bionic arm with Devil's Claw, frag, and crack grenades. I like to imagine that when Straken is getting ready for combat, it's like that scene from Commando where Arnie is just strapping on more and more guns to himself. Now, the plasma pistol, frag grenades, and crack grenades are all fairly standard, but the auto shotgun and the bionic arm with Devil's Claw are actually kind of interesting. They're unique special weapons for Straken. Now, the auto shotgun has a range of 12, it's assault 3, it's only strength 4 and AP 0, but it is a flat damage 2. So against an opponent who might be a bit unlucky with their armor saves, it could potentially wipe out 3 Marines in one pop. Now, whilst the auto shotgun is kind of fun and a nice to have, the bionic arm with Devil's Claw is a serious bit of kit, lads. It is a melee weapon that is strength user, but don't forget that Straken is strength 6, and if you take him with a traditional Catachan regimental doctrine like brutal strength, he would be strength 7 in combat with this weapon. It's also AP -3 and flat damage 2. In addition to his eclectic and impressive selection of war gear, Straken also boasts a whole host of abilities on his datasheet. As with all officers in the Guard, he comes with the voice of command and regimental tactics abilities. He also, being a senior officer, has a reroll 1s to hit roll aura for Astra Militarum core units. On top of this, Straken has a really cool ability called Been There, Seen It, Killed It. Each time this model makes a melee attack against an enemy monster unit, you can re-roll the wound roll. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is just a bit of fun, fluff, and flavour for the model. I mean, it doesn't even affect vehicles, but it is cool, and when it does crop up, it will mean that Straken could potentially take on some monsters that are well above his weight. Iron Hand also boasts extensive bionics, which gives him a 4+ invulnerable save. This is one of the best invulnerable save characteristics in the Codex. It's equal to the Lord Solar, although of course Straken does not halve the incoming damage. But when you compare it to things like Command Squads, Castellans, and even Ursula Creed, they only get a 5+ refractor field, whereas like I said, Iron Hand Straken gets a 4+ invulnerable save. But one of Straken's most important abilities is Cold Steel and Courage. Each time this model issues an order to a unit until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, unless the target of that attack is a vehicle unit, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. Note that this ability only affects the original target of the order and not any additional units that are affected by the order using the Regimental Tactics ability. Essentially, Straken can give you born soldiers in combat, and because he can do 2 orders a turn, he can do this twice over. But that covers Straken's stats, war gear, and abilities. Now let's take a closer look at how we can use him on the battlefield and his pros and cons. Well, the first thing to mention, and one of Straken's most unique selling points, is he is a genuine combat beast. He is one of the few dedicated combat characters that Guard can feature. Most Guard officers are purely buffing support units. You don't want them anywhere near the front lines, and if they get into combat or they get jumped on by an enemy assassination unit, more often than not, they are quickly dispatched. But Straken is a really tough nut to crack, and one of the main reasons you would consider taking him, even in a competitive environment, is if you want a senior officer that is going to be very difficult for your opponent to deal with. If they try and shoot him down with small arms fire, he's got a 3+ armor save. In cover, that's going to put him on a 2+ save. If they try and hit him with some bigger guns or power weapons, he's got a 4+ invulnerable save to keep him safe. Combine that with the fact that he has 5 wounds, which is very chunky, and he's toughness 4, he genuinely can be a real pain in the ass to take out. Due to the fact that most Guard commanders are effectively screened by their infantry, most of the time your opponent won't be able to shoot them down, and typically what they'll resort to is some kind of flying or jump character that can hop over your lines, get in amongst your officers, and start taking out your chain of command. If someone does that against Straken, they are going to be in for a really nasty surprise. More often than not, he's going to be able to take that punch on the chin, and when he strikes back, there is a serious chance he's going to knock out that enemy character. Sure, he's not going to be able to take on a Baden or a Void Dragon for long, but if someone tries to gank him with a jump captain or lieutenant, they are probably not going to succeed, and the end result might even be that they lose their character in their assassination attempt, and Straken is sitting there pretty. Now, you may have noticed that I've been talking about Iron Hand's stats and abilities in a defensive manner, ways of how he is more durable and protected against getting picked off. This is because at the end of the day, Straken is an officer and he is a Guard character. Whilst he can run around essentially as a roided up Castellan taking the fight to the enemy, his primary purpose should be to use his reroll ones to hit aura to boost your fellow Guardsmen and also hand out orders to try and increase the effectiveness of your units. I know the temptation is to take Straken, sling him down the flank, have him do a glorious one-man charge and use him as a magic missile. But at the end of the day, he is still a Guard commander. You need to be using him to support your army, and the way you want to think of him is as a Castellan that is very tough and in a pinch can be a cheeky combat counterattack unit. And the main con with Straken is that his extra abilities are very situational. Being there, seen it, killed it is cool, but there's going to be very few situations where you want to willingly send Straken into combat with an enemy monster. On top of that, Cold Steel and Courage is kind of tricky to make work. You can tell 2 Guardsman squads to get 6s to hit auto wound in combat, but they only have 11 or 12 attacks anyway, so getting a couple of auto wounds a turn isn't really worth it. But where you could get Cold Steel and Courage to work is with Rough Riders, because Straken can order around the cavalry lads. You could take a couple of 5-man squads of Rough Riders, order them to fix bayonets in the command phase. They'd also then get Cold Steel and Courage, and you could launch them off at your opponent. This would mean that they would be hitting on 2s, and that any 6s they got would auto wound. That actually gives your combat Rough Riders a pretty decent extra bit of punch, especially with things like Melter Lances. But outside of this specific circumstance, Straken's abilities are on the whole very situational, and they're rarely going to feature into your battle plans. The good news is that Straken is actually reasonably priced, and you could strongly argue that you don't even really worry about his datasheet abilities. The main reason you're taking him is for that extra durability. You have to ask yourself, do you want a Cadian Castellan that is going to have better toughness, a better armor save, and a better invulnerable save for just 25 points more? But that covers Straken's pros and cons. Look, I'm just going to level with you guys. You're not taking this bloke for the competitive angle. This guy embodies rule of cool. You are including him because he is an absolute monster, an absolute beast, and just such a cool character to have in your army. Look, I'm just going to level with you guys. You don't take Straken because you think he is a competitive choice. You take Straken because he is the embodiment of the rule of cool. He is a fun, flavorful meme choice that is going to add so much character to your army. We can argue back and forth all day over whether those extra 25 points for Straken over a Cadian Castellan are worth it, even if it's just for the durability buffs. But what I would say to you is this: your guard characters shouldn't be in a position where they're getting picked off. You should be fundamentally, as part of building your basic army list, be taking enough screening so that your characters are never in danger. Be that a Scion Deathball, waves of Cadian infantry, or chimeras to put your characters in, they shouldn't be in jeopardy. As a result, spending those extra 25 points on Straken is more often than not going to be a situational backup benefit. Oh, he might get into combat with something decent. Well, that was cool. It might happen 1 in 10 games. Oh, your opponent was a bit sneaky, or you made a slight mistake and they were able to get into combat with him. Oh, I guess he survived that. Again, 1 in 10 situation. At the end of the day, he is there to be a senior officer, and senior officers should not be putting themselves in peril. And it's because of this just primordial truth of guard characters that I'm going to give Straken a 6 out of 10. He is a really cool unit. And to quote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he gets 10 out of 10 for style, but minus several million for good thinking. But that's just my opinion on Colonel Ironhand Straken. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section below. Do you think he is a genuine competitive choice, and that for 25 points more, it's such a little amount of points that it's worth upgrading to him every single time? Or do you think that really he is just a fun, flavorful character that Catachan players are obviously going to include every single time, but for the rest of us, he probably can be left on the shelf? Let me know what your thoughts down in that comment section. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, make sure you smash that like button like Straken smashes big buff Catachan ladies, and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you've really enjoyed today's video, or you have found it particularly helpful, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. One of the big perks of becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter is you gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord. This is an online community of over 800 active members. It is always popping off in the MG Discord. There's people to talk to about tactics, army lists, memes, hobbying, painting, and everything in between. We also have a ton of experienced players and tournament goers in the community, which means it can be a great place to get some advice and a very powerful resource to draw upon. And I just want to take a moment to say a thank you to the latest channel members. So a big thank you to Josh, Matthew Holmes, Verado255, Grim Dankness, Chris Downing, Zoltan Hughes, M Stubbs88, Benjamin Klarman, Marl the Knife, and 13th Century Jackass. Thank you guys for doing your part. And I also want to shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a big thank you to Janet Wicks, Reese Jones, The Baneblade, Matthew Truell, Ever7 Chun, Alex DePaz, TS, Pierre, and John Thacker. Thank you guys for your ongoing Patreon support. And last but certainly not least, I would like to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So I want to say a big thank you to Bon Bon Vert, Phil French, Ross Miller, Tequal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Sulphur Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, August Varney, the one-man super chatting army. Thank you guys for your ongoing and generous support. It truly, honestly makes such a big difference. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.